Our story unfolds in an apocalyptic world, a world destroyed by a zombie virus. Humanity is struggling for survival. In this apocalyptic setting, a man finds a can of food. As he picks up the can from the ground, he notices it is broken. Disappointed, he wonders if it's still edible. Suddenly, he hears a sound. As he looks in that direction, he sees another survivor running toward him, with something chasing him. Looking closer, he is shocked to realize the other person is being chased by a zombie hound. Terrified, the man quickly drops his supplies and runs as fast as he can to save his life. While running, he suddenly notices a bright light in the sky. Surprised, he wonders what it is. The bright light starts coming toward the ground very fast and lands on top of the zombie hound, creating a huge explosion. However, the man and the other person survive. Someone saved their lives. They find themselves floating in the air inside some kind of bubble. The beam of light that saved their lives is none other than our protagonist. He is the last of humankind, roaming around the world, killing zombies. This is the last wave of zombies. As he sees the zombies, he uses his magic power and kills all of them in seconds. Then he activates Annex, Rotate Land Restoration. The buildings and roads destroyed in the apocalypse are instantly restored. The man who is being chased by zombies is shocked, exclaiming, "Oh my God, have I lost my mind? The city is being restored." They also notice other survivors, who are also trapped in bubbles, rescued by the protagonist. The man suddenly remembers where he has seen the protagonist before. "This guy," he says. The other man asks, "Who is he?" He replies, "When I was in the army, he gave us the vaccine for that virus. But no one believed it, not even me." Which means, we destroyed the world with our own hands. All of this, and now it's all on his shoulders. He's carrying all this for them. After successfully restoring the destroyed world, our protagonist says, "Phew, this world is finally settled." The system agrees, praising him for a job well done. Then, the system tells our protagonist to look at the ground. The survivors are praying that he stays and continues to shelter them. Seeing so few survivors, our protagonist feels a little guilty. But the system tells him there is no need to feel guilty. These people are enough to leave behind a spark of civilization that can thrive in this land again. This is the best possible outcome. Our protagonist agrees, acknowledging that it's the best he can do. The system advises, "Considering your position, I suggest you not get too emotional." Meanwhile, the remaining survivors see our protagonist as a god or their savior. They beg him, "Please stay. We are willing to worship you forever. We need you. Please help us rebuild a new civilization. God, please don't abandon us." However, our protagonist apologizes to everyone, telling them that his mission in this world has ended. The ones who can save you now are yourselves. Remember that your survival is the survival of your civilization. After telling them this, he calls the system and says, "Let's go to the next world." The system responds, "I'm sorry, I didn't get that, but you could have just said, 'Turn on the navigation.'" After that, the system opens a huge portal to travel to another world. Our protagonist travels to save a new world. However, this new world is perfectly fine, functioning really well. People are going about their daily work as normal. There is no sign of destruction. A man with yellow hair is talking to his girlfriend. As he is talking, suddenly a huge portal appears above him. He and everyone present are shocked. Our protagonist emerges from the portal. Seeing our protagonist, the yellow-haired man is really surprised and shouts, "There's someone flying in the sky!" Meanwhile, our protagonist breathes a sigh of relief and calls the system. The system responds, explaining, "In the midst of an apocalyptic virus outbreak, you saved the lives of 2 million people. That's 0.0028% of the world's population. He ensured the survival of their civilization. According to the rules of the system, he gets 1 point for each person he saves. So he earns 2 million points to spend on salvation items. The system congratulates him for becoming a certified doomsday savior. But our protagonist asks the system, "What's with all this color fuss? And what is this savior business? If I hadn't spent my points at the last moment to redeem the universal healing, I'm afraid that world would be a living hell by now. Even I can't get out of a situation like that. I was ashamed to show myself at the time of my departure." The system apologizes, saying, "I'm sorry, I haven't learned this skill yet." Our protagonist asks the system, "Do you understand Zero?" The system responds, You don't have to get too hung up on these details. A savior is only interested in the survival of civilization. 2 million people are enough to sustain humanity, and the flame of civilization will not be lost. That's all that matters. However, the system warns him, before you reach the 9th rank, you need 985,655,547,968 points. Please keep up the good work. Upon seeing the huge number of points, our protagonist realizes it's not going to be easy to get back home. Although it's true, he knows he must learn from the last experience. To earn more points, he decides, I gotta stop trying to do it alone this time. Maybe I can create a group of people here who can be of use to me. As he thinks about this, a military helicopter starts approaching him. The system notifies him that he seems to be making too much of a scene. Upon hearing this, our protagonist asks the system, then let's go somewhere else. He also tells the system, give me a detailed introduction about this world. After that, he uses a teleportation skill and teleports to a crowded place. The system explains to him, this world that's about to be destroyed, Sector SAD 2342, Earth number SDE 878, has been in a stage of peace for a long time. Rapid economic growth has brought about spiritual needs and the development of the entertainment industry. The food industry is the most important one, and it's a low magic world famous for its food. Recently, however, the whole world has been caught up in the negative effects of extreme weather, with frequent occurrences of high temperatures and extreme cold, floods, and droughts leading to a drastic reduction in food and energy production and international tensions, with small battles. Upon hearing this, our protagonist thought, this world looks a lot like my world. However, he noticed 2 people in black suits following him. The system informed him that he had been discovered, and asked if he wanted to use his points to redeem and use the hidden identity item. But he said no, telling the system to save those precious points for later because he wanted to meet the forces of this world. Suddenly, someone called out to him from behind. A cute girl asked, Sir, would you like to try our lady's new dish? He initially told her he was very busy, but even after refusing, he eventually agreed. A man sitting nearby said, I couldn't have imagined that Miss Mo herself would cook for us. What a lucky day. Another man agreed, saying, Yeah, I heard it's her first banquet since her debut. The dream of eating food touched by the hand of a goddess. Suddenly, a voice said, Sorry to keep you waiting for so long. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and participate in my food-tasting banquet. It was Miss Mo. She told everyone, Today I prepared a Chinese pastry for you. It's called Blossom Among the Flowers. As she clapped, the waiters started serving the dishes to everyone. Our protagonist was really surprised after seeing the food of this world, thinking, it looks just like the beanbag DLC. But as he tasted a little bit, he was shocked, wondering, what's this? The smell instantly invades my entire nostrils. It feels like I ate the whole spring. So delicious. Ever since he got the system, he hadn't eaten food in a long time. Suddenly, Miss Mo noticed our protagonist. She approached him and asked, Sir, I wonder what you think of my work. He replied, It's so good and delicious. It's making me love this world. You have created such wonderful things for this world. Therefore, the civilization of this world should not be destroyed. Nervous, Miss Mo told our protagonist, I don't quite understand what you mean. Could you explain? But our protagonist replied, I'm afraid I don't have time to explain, because the people who were looking for me are already here. The 2 men in black suits, who were following our protagonist earlier, stepped forward. Miss Mo asked them who they were. One of the men showed his ID and said, I am Chief Cha Yong-jung from the Special Affairs Bureau, and we need to talk to the gentleman behind you. Miss Mo, angry, said, That's so rude! This is a food-tasting banquet! You don't realize the importance of this, do you? As a chef, I won't allow my guests to be interrupted before the meal is over. The man in the black suit told Miss Mo to cooperate with them, adding, Of course we honor your position as a chef. It's just that he's not an ordinary person. Our protagonist replied, In just a few hours, you managed to pinpoint me. Mobilizing surveillance in cities and large corporations. It seems that in every aspect, you're in the top rank of executives and coordinators. The man in the black suit angrily asked our protagonist, What's your purpose? Our protagonist said, That's a very straightforward question. Why don't you come and see for yourselves? He then called the system, and a huge magic circle appeared below them. The men in black suits were shocked as the system started projecting the future of their world. Plane 5, a 02343, Earth number 50 E878, is about to be destroyed. In 3 years, earthquakes, tsunamis, and many more disasters are going to happen in this world, the system explained. In short, my identity is, I am the savior of your world, our protagonist told them. My purpose is to save the world from destruction. The man in the black suit, not believing his eyes, questioned, the end of the world? The savior? What the hell are you talking about? Why should we believe you? Our protagonist responded, I can relate to someone who can manipulate time, because, luckily, I am also a practitioner. Let's make a bet. The man in the black suit asked, what bet are you talking about? Our protagonist explained, as a meeting gift, I will give you a few prophecies to verify for yourselves. I bet that when my prophecies come true, the arrogance with which you now face me will be gone, and you and those behind you will believe that, because only I can save the world that's about to be destroyed. To prove this, our protagonist gave a disaster prediction note to the man in the black suit. Upon seeing this note, the man in the black suit was really shocked, wondering, how is this possible? Our protagonist told them, you and your superiors will need some time to verify my prediction, won't you? But do not delay the rescue response. The man in the black suit read the note and saw, tonight at 5:11 a.m., a 5.7 magnitude earthquake is about to hit Songshan County, killing 3 people. At 9:28 p.m. today, a 6.2 magnitude earthquake and tsunami will hit the coast of Virumala, leaving 123 people missing. Today, at 11:32 p.m., Flight A 3562 to West Asia will crash due to extreme weather conditions, killing 175 people. Upon reading this, he was still suspicious, wondering, can even something like a plane crash be predicted? If the doomsday information is true, these are major events that will affect tens of thousands or even hundreds of millions of lives. He was curious about our protagonist, wondering, who the hell is this guy? He told his colleague, this concludes the tasting banquet. Clear the room. Then he said to the protagonist, I will personally convey your note and everything I've seen and heard to my superior. But before I go, our protagonist reminded him, from the moment you received the note, I began to test you. I hope you pass this test and prove to me that your world can be saved. After saying that, he started eating again. Miss Mo, seeing this, asked him, you actually still have the heart to eat in this situation? Our protagonist replied, even if it's the end of the world, you still have to enjoy life. After all, we have no choice but to fight against disaster. On the other hand, the Special Affairs Bureau was watching their conversation from their control room, and they were really angry. One of them said, this guy may have some powers, but he says it's the end of the world. Come on, is this a joke? However, Zhao Chu told them, I've already checked his identity, and he seems to know what he's doing. To be on the safe side, I have sent a rescue team to the local areas in advance and initiated an early evacuation, Zhao Chu said. However, his superior was not happy with his decision, asking, how on earth did you climb to this position? There are hundreds and thousands of doomsday prophecies every year, and we're supposed to test them all. Zhao Chu, you actually believe this kind of nonsense. You are still too young, Zhao Chu told his leaders. Don't get worked up. I just sent fire and police cars to patrol the neighborhood, and under the guise of a campaign, we asked the residents of the high-risk area to go outside and stay there for a while. If the buildings really collapse, everyone present here will be to blame. Upon hearing this, no one dared to say another word. Suddenly, a voice came from behind, saying, Zhao Chu is still so aggressive. But if the public learns that we wasted federal resources based on some ridiculous prophecy, the credibility of the government will be at stake. What the hell were you thinking? It was the commander of the Special Affairs Bureau. The commander's assistant added, Songshan County isn't even in the earthquake zone, and there's no trace of any earthquake. It's only 100 kilometers from the capital. Are you going to take responsibility for the public statement this will raise? Zhao Chu tried to explain. Commander, you have always taught us that the purpose of the Special Affairs Bureau is to be responsible for the safety of the lives and property of the people. Faced with such an unexpected incident, instead of directly denying it and causing immeasurable losses, why not just believe him once? The commander retorted. Whether or not this man actually possesses powers has yet to be investigated. But one thing is certain. If they're not from my race, their hearts are different. Meanwhile, the man who received the note from our protagonist told Xiao Chu, "There's less than a minute left until the first prophecy comes to pass. We just have to wait." The commander's assistant told him, "There's no need. We've given the order to take him down, and we're taking over from now on." Xiao Chu tried to explain, but the commander interrupted. "We must first ensure the goodwill of the other party. For the sake of social stability, we should not gamble." Suddenly, the building of the Special Affairs Bureau started shaking. Everyone was surprised. The commander wondered, could it be? But before he could finish, a lady next to him exclaimed, "Songshan County, there was really an earthquake." The commander was shocked, thinking, the prophecy really came true? He ordered, "Call the third team. Bring that man here immediately. I want to interrogate him myself." But when the commander's assistant called them, he was shocked to hear that the man had disappeared. "What the heck? Didn't you just say that the target was in sight? How can he suddenly disappear?" He told the commander, "That man, he vanished right in front of everyone." Suddenly, a voice asked, "Where'd he go?" It was our protagonist. He told them, "I'm right here. Pardon my hastiness, but I wanted to know what decision you have made so far." The soldiers surrounded him and asked him to put his hands up. Our protagonist was pleased with their quick reaction, saying, "Not bad, the response speed is passable." However, when the soldiers demanded he raise his hands, our protagonist didn't like it. He used his eye-open skill, and in the next moment, the soldiers and their guns started levitating in the air. Everyone was shocked. Our protagonist told them, "Don't waste your efforts, these things can't hurt me." Although it was a bit of a disappointment, you passed my test, and you were quick to come after me too. Realizing they could not do anything to him, Xiao Chu asked our protagonist, "Can you continue with the prophecy now?" Our protagonist agreed, saying, "Of course, let me see your efforts and results." Suddenly, they received a call informing them that 2 old buildings had collapsed due to wall cracks. All were within the predicted buildings, and the relevant personnel were transferred in time. They were 3 elderly people, and because of their early intervention, there were no casualties in this earthquake. Just 12 minutes ago, a violent earthquake and a small tsunami struck off the coast of Virumala. At the time, they had no good reason to alert others about this unconfirmed disaster. So the number of deaths matched exactly what was written in the prophecy. Everyone was shocked after receiving this news. Now there was only one last prediction remaining. Flight A3562, which was predicted to crash in the storm, had already taken off. They intercepted a message indicating there was a severe thunderstorm not far ahead, and it was too late to turn around. All 157 passengers on board, including their citizens, were expected to die. Everyone was surprised and asked, "Then what are you waiting for?" "Chulin, you have to contact them." However, Chulin replied, "It's too late. Not that we had any reason to warn the other side, but after the plane took off, it's impossible to save a plane that's about to crash by external forces." Upon seeing their sad faces, our protagonist stood up and said, "Since we're working together, I should show some sincerity. I will bring everyone back, not a single one less." He then teleported to the location and asked the system to analyze the situation. The system told him, "A hurricane from the southwest is now approaching the target airplane with a rotational speed of 50 kilometers per hour, and the speed keeps increasing. At this rate, the hurricane will collide within 10 minutes at very high speeds. That would tear the airplane to pieces." Upon hearing this, he smiled and said, "It seems like just moving the plane should be enough." As he saw the airplane coming towards him, he smiled and dropped his umbrella. Then he used sorcery, manifestation of lightning, transforming intangible lightning into a tangible existence, converting immense energy into immense power. The airplane pilot was shocked upon seeing this. They couldn't believe their eyes. Someone was flying outside, holding lightning. They exclaimed, "Oh my God, what is that? Wait, is that a person standing in the lightning? I thought I was seeing things. But it's a super strong current exceeding 100 million volts. Could it be Superman?" Meanwhile, the system started warning our protagonist. "Tornado wind speed detected at 340 m/s. 10 seconds left. Please evacuate the storm immediately. The system told our protagonist that whatever he wants to do, he has to do it now. As the airplane was being sucked into the storm, the pilots tried their best to get the plane out of it. There was no time. They had to think of something. Suddenly, the airplane was stuck on the lightning. The surprised pilot wondered, "We've stopped, but the engines are still running." In the next moment, they saw our protagonist in front of the airplane. The system, seeing our protagonist's bold move, asked him if he was thinking of pulling the airplane out of the storm with his thunderbolt. Our protagonist replied, "As long as we get the plane out of the storm's path, they'll be fine." The system agreed, but worried that at this speed, the passengers might be harmed. Our protagonist reassured, "Don't worry, they might vomit, maybe get frightened and faint, but they won't die." After a long struggle, our protagonist finally managed to pull the airplane out of the storm. All the passengers were safe and fine. No one had died. After successfully escaping the storm, our protagonist breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, "That was close. If I had made any mistake, maybe some passengers would have died." Passengers, upon seeing our protagonist flying in the air, wondered if he was an angel who had saved their lives. Meanwhile, at the Special Affairs Bureau, someone told the commander, "We've re-established contact with the missing A-3562. It's preparing to land." Upon hearing this, the commander was shocked, wondering, how can he save an airplane in such a short time? "It's impossible," the commander exclaimed. But as they saw the airplane with their own eyes, they couldn't believe it. "Am I dreaming? They're really back, Commander." All the other airline control personnel were also surprised to see this unbelievable scene. A reporter asked the captain, "What did you just see? Please explain in detail." The airplane captain explained to the reporters, "I definitely saw it. That hero was flying in the storm." Upon hearing this, the reporter asked, "Are you sure he can fly?" The captain replied, "Yes, and not only that, he used lightning to bind the entire plane. This is definitely something only a god can do." Another reporter asked, "Mr. Sam, please describe that hero in detail again. Are you sure it wasn't just a misperception caused by the severe weather?" But suddenly, a cameraman noticed something in the sky. As he looked closely, he was shocked. He saw our protagonist, who was still there. Mr. Sam, the captain of the airplane, told the reporters, "Look, he's still there. The hero, the creator of miracles. It was he who saved a total of 157 people." The reporters went crazy, clicking pictures of our protagonist, exclaiming, "He's really flying!" The captain of the airlines wondered, does this mean God truly exists in this world? After saving the airplane, our protagonist, Shen, went back to the Special Affairs Bureau. The commander told Shen, "All 3 of your prophecies have come true, and we have witnessed your power firsthand, but we still hope to learn more intelligence. We wonder what caused this. Is there any possibility of a remedy now?" Upon hearing this, Shen smiled, thinking, "The leaders of this world finally show some competence. How do I explain the items exchanged from the system? Because humans in any world waver between justice and self-interest. If we recruit and train people here, they need not only fear but also benefit. Instead, let's reverse this and imitate them. Establish an organization. In this way, I can not only issue orders in the name of the organization, but I can also recruit talents from different worlds through it." He told everyone that actually, he was sent here to investigate the cause of the apocalypse based on the predictions calculated by the organization. The causes of the apocalypse are varied, but it will definitely happen sooner than they can imagine. Upon hearing this, Zhao asked Shin what kind of organization he works for. Shin explained that the organization he belongs to is called the Universal Order Preservation Association. It constantly observes the operation of different parallel worlds. When the association predicts that an apocalypse is imminent, it sends a savior envoy to investigate the cause and work with the locals to save the world. Curious, Zhao asked Shin if his organization must be a high-dimensional civilization that controls the fate of countless worlds. He assumed there must be many powerful envoys like Shin there. However, what they didn't know was that Shin had only recently invented the organization upon arriving in this world, and he was the sole member. But the system told Shin that although his words were confusing, if he wanted to start an organization in this dimension, then the organization members must include the system as well. Technically, they were 2 people, Shin said. Shin then told everyone, according to the predictions, that 3 years later, on Earth, SDE 878, human activity would almost disappear, and the remaining flame of civilization would be extinguished. This would mean the extinction of humanity. Upon hearing this, everyone present in the meeting room was shocked. The commander questioned Shin, asking if the apocalypse was inevitable. What preparations should they make? What plans needed to be implemented? He asked Shin, who had shown great power, if he had the strength to resolve these disasters. Shin, relaxing in his chair, replied, "The situation is becoming serious. It seems you're willing to cooperate now?" The commander apologized to Shin for doubting him before, explaining that they also had to consider the impact. He asked for Shin's forgiveness. However, Shin told him not to place all their hopes on him, and then showed them a video projection of a world he had previously handled. He explained that in less than a year, that world was nearly wiped out by a zombie virus. The reason here is similar. A lot of early events were used to test him. However, when he finally found a way to save them, and reached out to help, there were fewer than 2 million people struggling to survive on the entire planet. Yet the association still judged that I had completed the task of saving humanity. Do you know what that means? Upon hearing this, everyone began discussing what he meant, though no one seemed to know the answer. But Zhao Chu spoke up, telling Shin that what he saved was humanity, not just the number of people. Hearing Zhao Chu's answer, Shin nodded and said, "Yes, regardless of the number of people, as long as civilization can continue, the association does not care about the loss of many lives. So, when disaster strikes, the choices you make as leaders are what can turn the tide, not me." The commander, upon hearing this, remembered an ancient king who led his tribe to build a dam to control floods when disaster struck. He remarked, "As his descendants, we will never choose to sit and wait for death." Shin thought to himself that this world was similar to his, even down to the stories of controlling floods. The commander then told Shin to rest assured, as he would report to the top immediately and grant him the authority to mobilize all resources as quickly as possible. They saluted Shin, vowing to prove themselves through their actions so that he would not regret his choice. After handling all matters related to the Special Barua Association, Shin returned to Miss Mo's hotel, sighing, "The chaos has finally ended. I hope there are some leftovers. Even saviors have to eat." As he enjoyed the beautiful view from the window, a voice suddenly called out to him from behind. It was Mo Yuanbai, Miss Mo's father. He introduced himself as the current chairman of the Mo family group, saying it was an honor that his daughter Mo Chu's cooking had been recognized by Mr. Shin. Mo Yuanbai shook hands with Shin and told him that he had just instructed Mo Chu to prepare a good meal so they could talk while eating and discuss the matter of the apocalypse. Upon hearing this, Shin smiled and asked Mo Yuanbai, "Do you believe it?" Mo Yuanbai laughed and said, "Not to mention me, even my daughter doesn't believe in any apocalypse. But I can see that you are definitely a powerful person with extraordinary abilities, and that's enough to be worth investing in. Just your charisma alone could attract a large number of loyal followers. Moreover, our East lacks a true superhero. By leveraging your abilities and the topic of the apocalypse, we could create something monumental." However, Shin interrupted, asking Mr. Mo Yuanbai, as one of the few people who control the world's resources, if he had already learned about the predictions and disasters from special affairs. Shin told him, "I'm just a small businessman, and what I fear most is instability. If the whole world falls into panic, there's no need to test my motives. Whether you believe it or not is up to you. What you are most afraid of is the turmoil caused by the apocalypse affecting your assets and business, right? But you must understand, even if your assets and business are spread all over the world, just one global tsunami, and tens of billions of assets will turn into nothing. The probability of this happening, do you dare to bet on it?" Shin then warned him, "You can completely pretend the apocalypse doesn't exist, but the despair after playing deaf and dumb, and the relief after doing everything you can, are two completely different experiences." Mr. Mo Yuanbai knew what Shin was saying was right, but he couldn't believe that Shin could be the savior. He doubted, how can he alone save billions of people? Yet he recognized that Shin's abilities were real, and as long as his assets were preserved, even if the apocalypse was real, so what? But he was more curious if Shin could take a small number of people to another world for refuge. So, he said to Shin, since you know my business spans the globe, funding is not an issue. I can even help you build a unique spaceship. Shin smiled, saying, no matter which world's rich people, their thinking is exactly the same. He then asked Mr. Mo Yuanbai to listen carefully. Using his ability, Shin explained, the qualification to travel through worlds has nothing to do with power and wealth. It depends solely on the level of life. If you cannot evolve from a mortal, you can never escape the fate of humanity. I warned the rich people of the last world who tried to escape. But they didn't listen. And those titanium alloy coffins they spent a fortune building are just coffins. Mr. Mo Yuanbai felt a wave of fear wash over him as he suddenly found himself floating in space. He saw many destroyed spaceships around him. And then, to his horror, a dead person appeared in front of him. Terrified, he realized this was just an illusion created by Shin. Shin told Mr. Mo Yuanbai, disasters do not recognize money. Shaken by the dreadful scenes, Mr. Mo Yuanbai wondered if what he saw was real. Shin smiled and said, speaking of the possibility of traveling to parallel worlds, it is not non-existent. He then offered Mr. Mo Yuanbai a chance to join the Universal Order Preservation Association. If you join us, Shin continued, the association will naturally be responsible for guiding you onto the extraordinary path. Mr. Mo Yuanbai was surprised, thinking, asterisk, the ultimate delicacies of our world can prolong life and cure diseases. But the extraordinary? I'm afraid the terrifying virtual scene I just witnessed is only the most ordinary among the extraordinary. Even if it's not the apocalypse, reaching that level is something ordinary people can never achieve. Curious, Mr. Mo Yuanbai asked Shin, what are the recruitment standards of your association? Shin smiled and said, speaking of which, I have a bit of curiosity. As the most famous Mo family consortium in the world, I'd like you to mobilize all your power at any cost, and then we'll see what you can achieve. With confidence, Mr. Mo Yuanbai replied, understood. I will collect the relevant reports and deliver them to you as soon as possible. Then, noticing they had arrived at the VIP dining room, he added, oh, we've arrived at the VIP dining room. But Shin, with a hint of fatigue, asked, Mr. Mo Yuanbai, if it's not too much trouble, could you please prepare a residence for me as soon as possible? Even saviors need to sleep. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Miss Mo instructed all the staff members, do not mix up the order of cold, hot, fried, and soup dishes. Serve them one by one. Mr. Shen is a special guest, invited by my dad. We must not neglect him. Everyone nodded in agreement, assuring her they would follow her instructions. However, Miss Mo was deep in thought. He disappeared yesterday without properly tasting my dishes. This time, Dad wants me to properly entertain this savior. I must use my best skills. She then told everyone to check the plate temperatures again, saying she was going to notify the guests that dinner was ready. The staff agreed, but they couldn't help but gossip. Can you believe Miss Mo herself went to invite him? This savior must have high standards, one whispered. Another quickly hushed him. Keep your voice down. They say he can predict disasters. Mr. Mo believes in him a lot. Suddenly, a scream echoed through the hall. Everyone froze, wondering what had just happened. They quickly rushed toward the main hall, telling someone to call security. But as they reached the main hall, they were shocked to see Shin standing in front of a hologram of Earth, where a system voice announced, in this plane crash rescue, you saved a total of 238 lives and earned the equivalent points. Current points, 1,270,000. However, Shin looked concerned. Natural disasters like earthquakes are happening so frequently. The mysterious measurements are also normal. So it seems more like a scientific crisis, he thought to himself. Miss Mo, who had just arrived, was stunned by the scene. She asked Shin, is this the plane crash you prevented yesterday? Did you really save 238 people? Shin replied, compared to billions of people, a couple of hundred really isn't much. If I want to save more people, I'll need a bit of external assistance and luck. Just then, the system notified Shin. The Doomsday Lottery is now open. Please use the corresponding points to redeem lottery chances. Each draw costs 1,000 points. You currently have 10,000 points left. Shin instructed the system, start with a 10-time draw. Miss Mo, still processing what was happening, asked, is this a card draw game? Shin explained, the association places high-tech items from different worlds inside, relying on points to draw. Unlike games, this is purely luck-based. The fate of all humanity in this world is tied to my luck. The only sure way is to use a lot of points to empty the prize pool. The system redeemed 10,000 points and began the first 10 draw of the new world. A blinding light filled the room, causing everyone to shield their eyes. The system announced, "Congratulations, Shin, for obtaining a blue-quality artificial mini-sun." However, Shin was not pleased. "I already have nuclear fusion technology, so this is useless to me," he muttered. Miss Mo, in disbelief, thought, "Nuclear fusion? Can I even comprehend that? This should be a military-only weapon. This isn't a normal card draw game." "Well, let's see the next one." The system continued. "Congratulations, Shin, for obtaining an Aoyan brand Supreme hover car." But Shin dismissed it as a rubbish item. "Next?" he demanded. The system announced again, "Congratulations, Shin, for obtaining beginner implant prosthesis manufacturing technology." But Shin sighed. "I can't use this in this world. It's not from here. It can only be used on track 2077. The system then announced, "Congratulations, Shin, for obtaining a micro-artificial satellite and offshore floating high-speed rail technology." But Shin still wasn't satisfied. He explained to Miss Mo, "The items in the prize pool come from various parallel worlds. But none of these are what I need. Even if I draw something great, it's useless if it doesn't apply to this world," Shin remarked. Miss Mo smiled and said, "We have a saying, mystery doesn't save, only gotcha changes fate. It seems even a savior can't break this law." But Shin quickly told her, "Don't get too happy just yet. There are 2 more chances. Let's see what surprises they bring." As he drew the last 2 cards, the system announced, "Congratulations, Shin, for obtaining a U-75 multifunctional mechanical bionic and a Taylor-class airborne fortress commander." Upon hearing this, Shin was visibly pleased. "Finally, something useful," he exclaimed. The silver robot then introduced itself. "I am the U-75 robot, equipped with a Type 2 artificial intelligence module. I am fully capable of ensuring your safety, Shinny." Suddenly, the U-75 stated, "I have detected the presence of hot weapons nearby." Without a moment's hesitation, it quickly approached a security guard, snatched his gun without him even noticing, dismantled it within seconds, and reported back to Shin, "Danger cleared." The security guard was left speechless, utterly shocked by what had just occurred. The female robot then spoke, "I don't have the extraordinary combat power of U-75. I am merely an artificial intelligence evolved from the superquantum computer of the Taylor-class airborne fortress. The airborne fortress is a massive structure that can remain suspended in the air for extended periods. It possesses energy shields, optical invisibility, anti-gravity propulsion, and other advanced technologies. At this moment, my true body is hovering 3 kilometers high, overlooking the entire Earth. With air superiority and powerful computing capabilities, I can not only pilot the airborne fortress across the universe for you, but also provide you with formidable firepower support. Furthermore, while explaining all this, I have taken control of the entire world's information network." Shin, hearing this, smiled and said, "This is exactly what I need." Miss Mo, in disbelief, thought, "She can connect to the world's network with just a blink of her eyes? That's too exaggerated." The female robot then began reciting the background of Miss Mo's staff. Zhang Wei graduated from Kyoto University with a major in sociology. Specializes in community management. Li Mengting, a graduate of Tsinghua Advanced Culinary Academy, specialized in culinary arts. "If needed, I can keep going," she said. The security guard and other staff members were terrified, wondering, how does she know all this? The female robot then asked Shin for permission to broadcast a piece of breaking news. "There is a high-speed car 2 streets away. Based on facial recognition, I have obtained specific information about the car's occupants," she informed him. "They are Chulin from the Special Affairs Bureau and Che Yongchang. Their purpose is not yet clear," the female robot reported. Shin smiled at the mention of people from the Special Affairs Bureau and thought, "This is going to be interesting." He then instructed the U-75 robot, Chiwu, "Go and receive the guests." Chiwu, the U-75 robot, proceeded to the parking area and confirmed their identities, addressing them. "Captain Zhu and Vice Captain Che, welcome. Mr. Shen is waiting for you in the reception room. Please follow me." A shocked Captain Ju whispered to Vice Captain Che, "This is a real robot, not a human in disguise, right?" Vice Captain Che, trying to steady his nerves at the sight of the impressive machine, told himself, "Calm down. It's just a talking, self-aware robot that looks like a war machine. Don't show your fear, man." Though it was his first time seeing one too. As they got out of the car, Vice Captain Chi asked the robot, "What should we call you?" The robot responded, "You can call me by my name, Chi-Wu." Captain Ju, observing how effectively and intelligently Chi-Wu was conversing, couldn't help but wonder, has Earth even achieved this level of technology yet? As Chi-Wu began leading them to Shin, Vice Captain Che asked, "What exactly is this place?" Meanwhile, Shin, who was monitoring Earth, noted that chaos seemed to reign everywhere. He noticed Captain Ju and asked, "What happened?" Captain Ju explained, "There's a bit of a situation, Mr. Shin. We noticed that when you prevented the plane crash, you didn't plan to hide your identity." Shin, smiling, replied, "Why would I hide?" However, Vice Captain Cha nervously interjected, "This news has already shocked the entire world. If the news about the apocalypse becomes public, the chaos it would cause could severely hinder our organization's efforts to combat the apocalypse." Captain Ju agreed, adding, "Indeed, there's a risk that foreign governments might place the blame for social unrest entirely on you. Even with our full cooperation, it would be difficult for you to operate globally." He then showed a video to Shin, where a reporter was covering the incident, saying, "An Asian-looking man saved a plane in an incredibly bizarre manner. He even hovered above the plane for several minutes, allowing people to take pictures. He doesn't seem like the kind of superhero who stays low-key and wears a mask. Instead of keeping a low profile, he flaunted himself, enjoying being called a savior and worshipped as a hero." Vice Captain Chi told Shin, "The higher-ups say they can help you conceal your identity, reduce the spread of negative news among the public. What's your opinion on this?" However, Shin responded, "No need. Let the media spread it as much as they want. The more exaggerated, the better." Captain Ju, clearly nervous, said, "But you don't understand how some journalists can twist the facts." Shin interrupted, "I've told you, I come from a parallel Earth. Naturally, I'm well aware of their tactics. That's why I'll use their powerful publicity to spread my name far and wide. People are different. Some will fight to the last breath no matter what. Others will fall into hysterical fear, dying in terror and regret. So tell me, who do you think I'd rather see?" Vice Captain Chi replied, "Naturally, those who resist." Shin nodded in agreement. "Exactly! But everything depends on this. Rather than letting people die peacefully in ignorance, it's better to let them prepare in the midst of intense questioning. Enough people need to know that the apocalypse is coming." Vice Captain Chai, surprised, asked, "Even if it means bearing doubt and ridicule, all to achieve your goal?" Captain Ju was shocked, thinking, "This is the way of the savior." Shin smiled and told them, "Yes, I will continue to expand and enhance the organization's influence so that more and more people know the apocalypse is near. Only then can we select those willing to resist, daring to fight against the heavens." Vice Captain Che assured Shin, "Rest assured, we've already mobilized specialized personnel under your command. Just give the word and they'll take action immediately." But Shin told him, "Leave it at that for now." As they prepared to leave, Vice Captain Che couldn't help but ask Chai-Wu, "With the technology you've displayed, you must be one of Mr. Shen's top units, right?" Chi-Wu replied, "I'm ashamed to say I'm just a temporary, drafted Level 11 AI experiment." Chi-Wu added, "There hasn't been mass production yet, so I can't take on that responsibility." Upon hearing this, both Captain Ju and Vice Captain Che were surprised, wondering what this could mean. However, they didn't press further and took their leave. As they walked away, Vice Captain Che whispered to Captain Ju, "We must report to the Academy immediately so they can come to see this robot. That way, they'll realize just how limitless science truly is." Captain Ju agreed, saying, "Indeed, establishing good relations with Mr. Shen and mastering some extraterrestrial high-tech will surely give us more leverage in our preparations." Every word of their conversation with Chi-Wu was being monitored by Shin from his room with the help of the female robot. Listening to their discussion, Shin remarked, "Tonight's mission is to closely monitor the reactions of countries and major powers. They won't be as brainless as those ignorant media outlets. Let's hope they don't start infighting before the apocalypse even begins." Observing this, Shin commented, "The interest struggles among human groups never end." The female robot asked Shin, "Should we take countermeasures?" But Shin replied, No need. To survive at any cost, a bit of selfishness is within my tolerance. Anyway, they can't harm me. Standing up from his seat, Shin said, "We also need to start preparing." He then commanded the system, exchange points, QI, for gold disaster predictions. The system consumed the points and displayed the following predictions. At 4:20 a.m. tonight, a fire will be triggered by a lightning strike at the Emden Supreme Apartments in Faro City, resulting in 525 deaths and 236 injuries. On August 11th, at 7:15 p.m., a magnitude 5.3 earthquake will hit Libu City, causing 12 deaths and 128 injuries. On X Day, at 3:24 p.m., the Lucendo volcano cluster will experience an explosive eruption, with airflow and volcanic ash burying Bainan City, Duobaoman City, Tian Erbi City, and surrounding areas, causing 560,000 deaths. On X Day, the eruption of Mount Narasamao will trigger a ground collapse. On X Day, at 3:42 p.m., the Chalens volcano will erupt. Upon seeing these disaster predictions, Shin realized that a global volcanic eruption was imminent, happening in just a week. The deaths of at least tens of millions were just the prelude. He then instructed Ding Xiang, the female robot, issue a warning in the name of the association. Tell them, anyone who doesn't want to die, better behave. Faro City, Emden Supreme Apartments, 1 a.m. The weather outside was tumultuous, with flashes of lightning illuminating the dark sky. Inside the building, a woman, visibly exhausted and still dressed in her work attire, stepped into the elevator. She turned to her colleague, Ralph, and remarked, "Can you believe it's the weekend already?" Ralph, in a teasing tone, replied, "I was under the impression that editors-in-chief didn't have to work overtime, Miss Rossetti." She sighed heavily. "You'd think so. But with all the bad news lately, it seems never-ending. Heat waves, rainstorms, it's all happening at once." As the elevator doors opened at their destination, Ralph stepped out and quipped, "The Engineering Academy could use someone with your dedication to overtime. I could put in a recommendation for you." She waved him off, offering a weary smile. "Please, no more jokes," she said. "Good night, Ralph." She made her way toward her apartment, feeling the weight of her exhaustion settle in. Her head pounded, as if it were filled with pressure, ready to burst. What on earth is happening to the world? She mused silently, but quickly dismissed the thought, focusing instead on the next headline she needed to prepare. Upon entering her apartment, her children ran to greet her. Taken aback, she glanced at the clock. "It's 1 a.m. Why are you both still awake?" Her youngest pointed toward the living room. "Big sister said it's dangerous here. She told us we need to evacuate." Confused, Miss Rossetti turned her attention to the television. To her surprise, a woman on the screen was speaking urgently. "This is a message from the Pan-Humanism Protection Association. Miss Rossetti, please evacuate yourself and your children from Emden Apartments immediately. This is not a notification, it's a direct warning." Miss Rossetti's initial reaction was anger. "A hacker? Get off my TV!" she shouted. "How dare you invade my home?" The woman on the screen remained composed and resolute. "I assure you, this is no prank. The Pan-Humanism Protection Association has identified that Emden Apartments will be struck by a catastrophic thunderstorm in approximately 25 minutes. You must evacuate immediately." Miss Rossetti, though beginning to feel apprehensive, still clung to disbelief. "I don't care how you hacked into my system, but what you're suggesting is impossible. This building has top-tier lightning rods and fire protection systems. There's no way a fire could break out here." The woman, who introduced herself as Ding Xiang, replied with a firm, yet urgent tone. "Our predictions are never wrong, Miss Rossetti. You may choose to disregard this warning, but I have a duty to inform you of the impending danger. For your own safety and the safety of your children, please leave the premises immediately." Intrigued by how the intruders had infiltrated her television system, Miss Rossetti stood frozen in disbelief, while her children, still under the impression that this was some elaborate game, watched with wide-eyed excitement. Just then, a knock came at the door. "Miss Rossetti, please open the door," a man called from the hallway. "Has your internet been acting up as well?" Miss Rossetti opened the door quickly. "What do you mean, acting up? Are you experiencing the same thing?" Before she could finish her question, the man gestured for her to look around. As she glanced down the hallway, it became evident that everyone in the building had received the same message. each addressed personally. Stunned, Miss Rossetti's mind raced. How did they manage this? Did they really warn everyone in the entire building? At that moment, an elderly man stormed out of his apartment, visibly frustrated. "I got the same warning. They're saying a fire will break out in 15 minutes, he bellowed. "This is absurd. I'm going to sue these television and phone companies into bankruptcy for this harassment." Miss Rossetti turned to Ralph and asked, "Aren't you an information engineer? What's your opinion on all this?" Ralph, looking concerned, replied, "This is beyond anything normal. You have no idea what we're dealing with. What kind of virus could take over every electronic device simultaneously? And I suspect that woman isn't even human. She's likely an artificial intelligence, an extremely advanced one." He pointed at Rossetti. "She's even calling out everyone's name." At that moment, Ding Xiang's voice came through Ralph's phone. "You're right, Ralph. Now can everyone please evacuate? There are 13 minutes left." Without hesitation, Ralph rushed toward the exit. "Miss Rossetti," he urged, "get your kids out of here. I'm leaving now." Miss Rossetti watched him in disbelief. "Do you really believe in such a ridiculous prediction?" she asked. Ralph paused briefly and said, "There's an old saying in Chinese. If something can go wrong, it eventually will. Don't risk your children's lives just to prove a point." Meanwhile, the elderly man, still furious, noticed others starting to take the warning seriously. He scoffed, "Great. You're all going to follow that arrogant lunatic? Fine, go ahead and leave. But I'm staying put. I'm smashing my phone and cutting the power. Let's see how they keep harassing me after that." As more and more people began to leave the building, Miss Rossetti's young daughter tugged at her sleeve and asked, "Are we going to leave too, Mommy?" Miss Rossetti looked at her children, her mind racing with uncertainty. Around her, many residents were cautiously heading toward the exits, heeding Ding Xiang's warning. However, some dismissed the entire situation as a hoax, brushing it off as nothing more than a scam. Outside, in the pouring rain, those who had evacuated stood under the storm, growing increasingly frustrated. "She made us leave in such a panic, and now we're just standing in the rain? This has to be a prank. I'll report this to the building management." Miss Rossetti, still on edge, thought to herself, "It's just a thunderstorm. There's no way lightning could be strong enough to set the whole building on fire. Could we have really been tricked by a hacker?" But just as the countdown reached 0, an incredibly powerful lightning strike hit MDEM Apartments. The entire building was engulfed in flames. The people who had evacuated safely stood in shock, watching the disaster unfold before their eyes. Those who had ignored the warning were caught in the fire, some even falling from the burning building. "They're still inside! They're burning alive!" someone shouted. "Call the fire department now!" But another voice, trembling with fear, added, "Why didn't anyone force them to evacuate?" Miss Rossetti, standing frozen, watched the horrifying scene unfold. Her child, clinging to her side, asked in a small voice, "Mom, were we going to burn to death too?" Shaken, Miss Rossetti realized the truth. "It's all thanks to that hacker." She glanced down at her phone, now functioning normally. "She's gone. She saved us, and disappeared without a trace." But Rossetti couldn't shake the thought. She did tell us where she came from. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Ding Xiang, monitoring the entire situation, apologized to Xin. "I'm sorry, I was only able to convince 67% of the residents to evacuate." But she hesitated, her curiosity getting the better of her. "Xin, there's one thing I don't understand. Why would some people rather destroy their phones and ignore my warnings, even up until their final moments?" "I couldn't complete my first task. I'm so ashamed," Ding Xiang lamented. Xin, however, reassured her, "It's not your fault. After all, mankind fears the unknown, especially when faced with powerful forces. Most of the people living here have modest means, but despite the overwhelming evidence, some simply refuse to believe in what they don't understand." Ding Xiang, still puzzled, asked, "If one apartment building can be divided into several factions just from a single piece of information, how many people around the world will believe that, a week from now, it will be their final day?" "So, Master, what you truly want is to spread the word, isn't it?" Xin smiled and nodded. "Exactly. We need to elevate the profile of the Humanist Defense Organization as quickly as possible. Once our voice is heard, people will naturally rise up and act on their survival instincts." The system chimed in agreement. "That's right. Even if only tens of thousands survive, the seed of humanity will endure. Ding Xiang, you're still new here, and there are many concepts yet to be programmed into your system. Meanwhile, the news of the MDEM Supreme Apartments disaster spread like wildfire across the globe. A mysterious organization predicts disaster. A fire broke out late last night in Faro City, claiming over 700 lives. However, all residents received a disaster warning in advance. Dozens of survivors have first-hand accounts of the event. What is this humanist defense organization? Stay tuned for a detailed analysis. Shocking news. A natural disaster prophesied. All electronic devices were hijacked. But even more alarming than the tragic disaster is the invasive information control exhibited by this mysterious organization. Their ability to control any smart device raises serious concerns about privacy and security. It's chilling. In a car, listening to the news, Zhao Chu remarked to his colleague, "These guys always find a way to twist the narrative. They're more focused on Mr. Shen's powerful methods than on the incident itself. The saviors got it rough." A reporter interviewed Ralph, one of the survivors of the disaster, asking, "As an information engineer, what do you think about this frightening ability to control smart homes?" Ralph, visibly shaken but grateful, responded, "First of all, I want to thank the Humanist Defense Organization for saving my life. But you know, most of today's smart appliances are made in China. With such a large-scale hacking incident, we're likely under constant surveillance. But that's beside the point. The crucial thing is that they warned us about the disaster and saved our lives. More importantly, they can predict disasters. Can modern technology really do that?" In a burst of passion, Ralph grabbed the reporter's microphone and exclaimed on camera, "As an information engineer and scientist, I have to say, if you recognize my skills, please let me join. I don't want a salary." Elsewhere, Shin watched the interview with a smile, while the male robot beside him expressed surprise. "I can't believe someone is volunteering to join us so quickly. Master's strategy really worked." Shin nodded, pleased. "It's a good sign. With talents like his joining the association, our chances of success grow stronger." At the same time, Ding Xiang, who was connected to the global internet, informed Shin, "The data we've just gathered shows that the scientist's interview has become a worldwide trend." "Excellent," Shin replied, his smile broadening. "Create a talent profile for him. Collect all relevant data, analyze his personality and mental state, and prepare for when we truly need him." Zhao Chu and his colleague approached Mr. Shin with urgency. "A fire broke out last night, but it's made the association's name known all over the internet. However, most of the reports are still negative," Zhao Chu informed him. Shin glanced at them and calmly replied, "Negative or positive, it doesn't matter anymore, because the end of this world has already begun." Both men were visibly shocked. Zhao Chu's colleague, dressed in a black suit, asked in disbelief, "But we thought we still had some time left?" Shin shook his head. "Don't worry, it's just the beginning. Probably only tens of millions will die." The man in the black suit, now angry, retorted, "Tens of millions? Mr. Shin, only 10 million people died in the First World War. Don't treat this so lightly." Shin looked at him coldly. 10 million people will die in a single day." Their faces turned pale with shock. Shin continued, "Do you think the end of the world means the destruction of humanity? As long as I'm here, your civilization won't be extinguished. How much survives depends on your efforts." With a wave of his hand, Shin projected images of volcanic craters from around the world. There are more than 2,000 extinct volcanoes, and over 500 active ones. This time, nearly all of them will erupt. The earthquakes and tsunamis caused by these eruptions will consume everything. Zhao Chu, horrified, exclaimed, "How could this be? Some of these volcanoes haven't shown signs of activity for tens of thousands of years." Shin answered calmly, "We don't know why. Disaster predictions only show the results, not the process. What's worse, we only have 7 days to prepare. There's no time or energy to figure out the cause." The man in the black suit protested, "That's nowhere near enough time. There are 3 major volcanic clusters in our country, with over 800 volcanoes and tens of millions of people living in densely populated areas. Even if we focus on evacuating the 10 million most vulnerable people, we won't have enough time." Desperate, Zhao Chu asked, "Can the organization do something?" Shin replied bluntly, "My mission is to protect humanity. If you want the association to invest more resources in your people, then prove your worth. Show me how powerful your civilization is." Zhao Chu, now resolute, nodded. Don't worry, Mr. Shin. We will accept the situation. I'll report to all the departments and coordinate our efforts immediately. We'll unite all our strength to resist this disaster. Sometime later, across the city, people began receiving a text message warning them. Starting at 3 p.m. on X year X month, the global volcanic craters are about to erupt. Stay away from your city. Humanist Defense Organization. Many shrugged it off, thinking it was a prank. One man chuckled. This has to be a spoof message, trying to ride the wave of the Humanist Defense Organization's popularity. Those volcanoes haven't erupted in tens of thousands of years. What's there to worry about? His friend, sitting next to him, agreed. Yeah, our city has the largest group of extinct volcanoes in the country. It's a famous tourist spot for crying out loud. Meanwhile, in a classroom, a teacher entered and called for the students' attention. Please be quiet. I have an urgent announcement. The class fell silent as she continued. There is a national emergency notice that concerns everyone's safety. I believe you've all received the warning message from the Humanist Defense Organization. The city has now activated its highest-level emergency plan and entered a state of emergency. You and tens of millions of others must evacuate to a safe area within the next 4 days. Meanwhile, on NCB-TV's Midday News, the host Jenny began her report. Of course, we receive harassing messages from conspiracy theorists and underground religious zealots every day, but this time, someone actually took it seriously. I have to say, this is truly a magical country. You may remember the disaster prediction warning we received this morning from the Humanist Defense Organization. Now, we'll connect with our frontline reporter. The broadcast switched to Stephen, who was reporting from the field. Jenny asked, Stephen, we just heard there's a large-scale evacuation underway in the east. Is it true that tens of millions of people are being relocated just because of a warning? Stephen, standing amidst the chaos, nodded. Absolutely, Jenny. Just an hour after I received the alert on my phone, local authorities had already made the decision. They've sent out large vehicles to begin evacuating the entire city. From what I've observed, people have been bombarded with viral messages urging them to leave. He continued, It's not just that. There are even reports that the army is mobilizing to assist with the evacuation. I mean, the army? You'd think that would cost them a fortune to deploy so quickly, but here they are. Stephen checked his phone, showing the screen to the camera. I've received multiple notifications asking me to return to my residence, complete with my personal identification details listed. But as a journalist, I've decided to bring the real story to everyone. His tone turned more urgent. There's a citywide radio announcement declaring that all private vehicles must be removed from the main roads. Only large passenger vehicles are permitted to pass. My God, where did they even get all these vehicles? Stephen then reported further, We've just received official data. In the past hour, over 78,000 stores have been closed across all affected cities, along with 120 factories. They've already moved their operations to designated safe zones. Some companies have even organized their employees to volunteer, and the numbers are still rising. Shin, observing everything from above, was impressed by the swift response. The system, noticing Shin's reaction, remarked, It looks like you're getting better at choosing the right places. Look at this. Before the army could even arrive, the people are already saving themselves. Ding Xiang chimed in. The army has arrived, and Hongfei Zhang, the commander in charge of the evacuation, has just landed at the airport. The reporters are already swarming him. Shin raised an eyebrow, surprised. The system, with a gentle smile, added, The reporters are only looking for a headline. They don't care if the commander has urgent tasks to attend to. At the airport, Commander Hong was quickly surrounded by eager reporters, each firing off questions in rapid succession. Commander Hong, do you have the confidence to complete this massive evacuation in just 4 days? Commander, how do you feel about this operation? How will you ensure tens of millions of people will follow your instructions? Please, Commander, say a few words. Commander Hong, unfazed by the barrage of questions, simply replied, Not 4 days. We have exactly 99 hours and 27 minutes. He continued, his voice firm and resolute. Just 10 minutes ago, all high-speed trains, airplanes, and long-distance buses were suspended. Every available resource will be funneled into the evacuation zone for a saturation rescue effort. That's how we're going to get this done, by giving it our absolute best. We will push to the limit. Shin, watching from the screen, was impressed by Commander Hong's leadership. He's a talented general, Shin thought, nodding in approval at the commander's determination and strategy. Shin watched the situation unfold on screen and remarked, "He deserves to be trained well." Back on the ground, Stephen, stunned by Commander Hong's bold statement, questioned, "What the hell? Why go to such extremes? Does Dongfang really believe this prediction? Why trust a conspiracy organization when there's no evidence? In my opinion, this usually means—" Before Stephen could finish, Commander Hong, now visibly furious, interrupted. "No faith? Of course we don't believe in your God. We believe in one thing only. The lives of our people come first. The lives of our people are the most precious. Do you understand?" Commander Hong stormed toward Stephen, his eyes blazing. "Are you with NCB?" he asked, leaning closer. "Go back and check. 20 minutes ago, the Erlandon earthquake happened, just as predicted by that organization. They've made countless accurate predictions in just one day. So tell me, why should I take any chances?" Shin, observing the exchange, chuckled and turned to Ding Xiang. "What about the rest of the world? How are they handling the disaster relief?" Ding Xiang analyzed the situation from other countries and reported, "Most of the global leaders are just watching the East's actions. Typical statements on the internet reflect this." She pulled up a news clip for Shin to see, where a reporter was saying, "Just now our correspondent had his microphone snatched away by the authorities. It's a classic case of censorship. Exactly what we've come to expect." Shin smirked. "That's normal," Ding Xiang continued. "Compared to cities like Yuanchang, which are already taking action, foreign nations are in disarray. Although we've provided warnings and crisis management suggestions, they don't seem to be taking it seriously. In most cases, it's been left to the people to decide for themselves. Their leaders haven't made any preparations for the disasters." She then showed Shin another broadcast, where a reporter conveyed a government response. The governor stated he doesn't believe in predictions. However, he has decided to send volcano experts and geologists to investigate the site. They believe they will reach a conclusion soon. While personal freedom is paramount, and no one is restricted from leaving the danger zone, those who have received and believe the warning are free to evacuate on their own. As for this humanist defense organization, the governor hinted at a possible link to an eastern country. Shin sighed, shaking his head. "Forget it. Since they've chosen this path, even I can't save them. Let's focus our energy on those who truly want to survive." Meanwhile, at Yuanchang University, a professor addressed his students, trying to calm the rising panic. "Don't be afraid. Treat this as a large-scale drill. Stay calm, don't panic. As long as we're united, there's nothing we can't overcome." In the crowd, one nervous student whispered to his friend, "What is this humanist defense organization anyway? How can they make the whole country take action?" His friend shrugged. "I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm just going to follow the instructions. If the volcano does erupt, I don't want to be buried under it." Suddenly, a man with yellow hair arrived on the scene, carrying a camera, showing his viewers the ongoing evacuation. "Look at this!" he shouted. "Everyone's taking safety precautions. Check out these college students lining up here." He moved through the crowd, disrupting the flow. A professor, noticing the disturbance, approached him and asked, "Excuse me, sir, do you have a broadcasting license?" The yellow-haired man, with an air of arrogance, replied, "I'm a self-media reporter with 100,000 followers. I don't need a license to report the truth." Mocking the situation, he turned to the students and scoffed. "You're supposed to be college students, and yet you still believe in such ridiculous predictions? You've read so much. You've become fools." Just as the atmosphere grew tense, a loud, rumbling sound interrupted the scene. People paused, looking around in confusion. "Was that an earthquake?" someone asked. At that moment, Shin's system alerted him, a 2.5 magnitude earthquake has just occurred in Yuanchang City. Slight shaking detected. It's recommended you prepare immediately. Shin, surprised, thought to himself, a sign of volcanic activity, earlier than predicted. Meanwhile, Commander Hong asked urgently, "When will the army truck support arrive?" The first batch took an hour and a half, with a total of 580 vehicles. Commander Hong, his face stern, gave a direct order. "Make it 1 hour!" The soldiers around him were taken aback. 1 hour? That's too extreme, Commander. I'm afraid that's impossible. One soldier hesitated. Commander Hong, visibly frustrated, turned to him angrily. "Earthquakes are happening all the time, and we don't know what's going to happen next. We must keep pushing the pace to handle any emergencies that may arise. Don't talk to me about being extreme." He paused, pointing at the soldier. As the vanguard, you will personally guide the first convoy out of the city to safety. If there's a problem with any aspect of this mission, don't blame me for not showing respect to your old boss." The vanguard saluted sharply and replied, "Rest assured, Commander Hong, I'll guarantee the mission's completion." In Yuanchang City, the military broadcasted an announcement to the citizens. Minor earthquakes are occurring frequently due to increased crustal activity. This is a sign of the volcano's imminent eruption. Do not panic. Gather in front of the designated evacuation vehicles and follow the plan. The soldiers continued. Citizens, please stay with your assigned groups. Do not move around or leave the team. Take responsibility for your own life and the lives of others. Let's work together to overcome these difficulties. Soon after, the evacuation vehicles began arriving, and the crowd erupted in relief. The sight of the military convoy brought hope to the people. The soldiers exited the vehicles and announced, "Residents of Xingfu community, step forward. Let's prioritize the elderly and children first. Don't worry, no one will be left behind." The citizens felt a collective sigh of relief. Finally, we're saved, they thought. We feel more at ease now. A soldier shouted, "Another convoy is on its way. Those waiting in the back, get ready." Shin, watching from above, asked Ding Xiang, "Based on your calculations, will they be able to evacuate in time?" Ding Xiang replied, "If everything goes smoothly, they should just manage to get everyone out along the evacuation route before the volcano erupts." Ding Xiang, after monitoring the situation, reported to Shin with concern, "But this is only the most ideal scenario. Earthquakes are becoming more frequent, which will undoubtedly impact the evacuation. Time until the volcano erupts: 92 hours, 32 minutes, and 0 seconds. Remaining population in the city: 23,540,512. Oops. Suddenly, she noticed something alarming. Something unexpected has occurred. The evacuation vehicles have stopped. They're not moving forward. She quickly reported to Shin. Commander Hong, frustrated by the delay, shouted into his radio, "G-124. Why don't I see any cars moving? This will slow down the evacuation. Can you afford that?" The response came back quickly. "Commander, the earthquake caused a landslide. A massive boulder has destroyed the highway." Commander Hong bit his finger in frustration. Why did this have to happen now? The citizens, too, were growing increasingly scared at the sight of the blocked road. Hong thought to himself, "We've come this far following the predictions. Is everything going to fall apart because of this unexpected disaster? Damn it all!" A driver asked, "Commander, should we call for help?" Hong clenched his fists. There's no time to wait for help. Time is running out. Suddenly, he remembered something Shin had once told him. "Instead of waiting for death, I'd rather fight back. If we do nothing, that will be the end." Commander Hong's resolve hardened. He shouted to his troops, "Assemble all the front and rear vehicles. All soldiers on site. Gather now. Not a single one of our people will die here. Even if we have to use our bare hands, we're going to dig a way out." The soldiers quickly assembled, and, seeing their determination, the citizens stepped forward. "We'll help too. We can't let the soldiers do all the work." Ding Xiang, observing the scene, remarked, "At least they didn't complain. Instead, they're thinking of solutions. But it feels less like a solution and more like a last, desperate struggle. Even if an excavator were to arrive now, it's too late. Without the Master's help, they'll all die." Shin nodded. "I know." With that, he descended to the scene and unleashed his lightning powers. Commander Hong, witnessing the sudden burst of energy, shouted, "Everyone take cover! The Savior is here!" Shin's lightning struck the massive rocks, shattering them into pieces. Smoke billowed across the area, and as it cleared, the citizens and soldiers looked in awe at the figure standing before them. Shin emerged from the smoke and said calmly, "It seems you've understood my words. I've come to help." Behind him, a magical barrier appeared, shimmering with protective energy. Everyone was stunned to see a man flying through the sky. How is he doing that? Some wondered. Others whispered, "Is he here to help us?" Commander Hong, spotting Shin, shouted to the crowd, "Mr. Shin is here to help us! What are you waiting for? Retreat immediately! We don't have time to waste! Everyone get back on the buses and prepare to leave!" Many people, watching from inside the vehicles, could hardly believe their eyes. Is there really a savior in this world? Some thought. Could he be a superhero, like Superman? Shin gazed at the crowd calmly before using his powers to lift the massive stones, blocking the road, hoisting them effortlessly into the air. The onlookers, mouths agape, watched in disbelief. Is this some kind of science fiction movie? They wondered. Those rocks must weigh thousands of tons. With just a flick of his fingers, Shin shattered the massive stones into tiny pebbles and tossed them to the side. The crowd gasped in shock, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. How is this possible? With a cold expression, Shin looked at them and asked, "What are you still doing here?" Commander Hong quickly ordered the driver. "Let's go." He breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, "Thank goodness, finally there's no delay in progress. It's all thanks to Mr. Shin, our savior." As night fell, the evacuation continued, though many people still remained. Ding Xiang reported to Shin, "Time until volcanic eruption, 80 hours, 13 minutes, 35 seconds. Population remaining in the city, 18,543,713. Hours passed, and the number dwindled. Time until volcanic eruption, 66 hours, 16 minutes, 24 seconds. Population remaining in the city, 15,548,913. As more time passed. Time until volcanic eruption, 43 hours, 19 minutes, 59 seconds. Population remaining in the city, 10,189,913. The system informed Shin, "There are still 24 hours until the predicted eruption. The number of people left in the city is 8 million. We are still within the time limit. Please, Master, keep pushing forward." Shin smiled, reflecting, "This is not something one or two people can handle. It's a phenomenon that only happens when thousands of people collectively fight to survive." As a young boy evacuated with his father, he looked up at Shin in the sky and asked, "Dad, who is that man? He's been watching us the whole time." His father replied, "That's the savior, son. He's watching over us, ready to help at any moment." The next day, with only 6 hours remaining until the warning deadline, the population in the city had decreased to 500,000. Commander Hong's secretary urged him, "We have to move faster. We're already behind schedule. Don't waste the time others have saved." Commander Hong, resolute, responded, "By noon, we need to make sure every civilian is evacuated. Everyone. No one is to be left behind. We also need to leave space for the last group of rescue volunteers to evacuate." Shin, overhearing Commander Hong's words, smiled and said, "It looks like Mr. Hong is willing to risk his life for this. Well done." He then turned to Ding Xiang and asked, "How is the rest of the world preparing for this?" Ding Xiang checked his database, and, with a worried expression, replied, "They seem completely unprepared." Meanwhile, across the globe in the USA, people who believed in the warnings from a mysterious organization began evacuating in droves. As a result, the roads were choked with cars, and traffic jams were inevitable. A frustrated old man with blonde hair sitting in his car grumbled, "I told you this road was too narrow. Where on earth did they spend our tax money?" Annoyed, he asked his driver to turn off the radio, where a reporter was delivering updates. The following highlights are on the Eastern migration. The countdown to the so-called global volcanic eruption is getting closer. Yuchang City in China has successfully evacuated nearly 20 million people to flatlands in just 4 days. This unprecedented action has led many to wonder what methods the Chinese government used to enforce such compliance. Hearing this, the old man scoffed. "Those fools are running away because of a rumor." His driver nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it looks like they're terrified. Even though we've announced that the volcano won't erupt on a large scale, people are free to leave if they want. It's their choice. But honestly, you're the top geologist in the world. If they don't trust you, who can they trust?" The blonde-haired man gave him a sideways glance and remarked sarcastically, "Maybe they believe in God too." Eventually, they arrived at the laboratory, and the old man instructed his young disciple, "Contact the Europa Joint Laboratory and keep a close eye on the data." The young man, slightly startled, replied, "I don't have a minute to spare." Suddenly, the blonde-haired man noticed something unusual on his monitor. His eyes narrowed as he focused on the readings, then widened in shock. "How is this possible?" Noticing his teacher's reaction, the young man anxiously asked, "What's wrong? Isn't this just a normal vibration?" The old man, clearly rattled, turned to his disciple and said, "If these global volcanic eruptions are real, where is the source?" The young man froze, realizing the gravity of the situation. His eyes widened as he whispered, "It's the center of the earth. We've been ignoring the center of the earth." The old man quickly barked orders. Pull up all the underground fluctuations we've detected from the crater. Gather every piece of data from the past few weeks. Collect everything within the next half hour. I need to start calculating immediately. The young man sprinted to retrieve the data, returning with stacks of files and digital reports. Handing them over, he watched nervously as his teacher pored over the calculations, his fingers racing across the keyboard. After a few minutes, the young man glanced at the results, eyes widening in disbelief. "Teacher," he stammered, "are you sure these numbers are correct? This percentage—" The blonde-haired old man stared at the monitor in shock. The chances of a global volcanic eruption were 67%. His glasses slipped from his face as he whispered, his voice trembling, "The Humanist Defense Organization. They were right all along." His expression was a mix of sadness and disbelief. On the other side of the world, Ding Xiang reported to Xin, "A famous geologist, Stephen Stretch, has issued a public statement. He admitted his mistake and is urging people to flee for their lives." Xin, with a cold, detached expression, responded, "It's hopeless. There's no point in them doing anything now." Ding Xiang added, "He even tried contacting the media and influential figures to warn the public, but they all dismissed him as a clown." She then showed Xin a live news report on a screen. A reporter was speaking to his colleague, Jonah, who was on site at an active volcanic region. The reporter asked, "Jonah, there are 15 minutes left before the volcano is predicted to erupt. Are you and your team nervous?" Jonah chuckled, brushing off the concern. "Experts have said this is a dead volcano. It's such a beautiful place. I can't imagine why anyone would curse such a stunning piece of nature." The reporter hesitated, and then added, "But just now, Stephen Stretch overturned his previous conclusion. He now believes the prediction by the Humanist Defense Organization is accurate. Also, the Great Eastern Migration, which trusted this prophecy, has completed its evacuation." Jonah laughed at the news, scoffing. "Are you sure those experts weren't bribed by the East? They've got plenty of influence. I hear they even drag elderly people out of their beds and beat them up. What a disgrace." Another reporter on the scene agreed with Jonah, adding, "Yes, and those people rushing out of their cities without proper knowledge have caused massive traffic jams. What do you make of it?" Xin, watching the broadcast, didn't show anger. Instead, he felt a deep sense of pity for them. Suddenly, in the background of the broadcast, the volcano erupted violently. Jonah, who had been laughing just moments before, froze in terror as the realization of his fate set in. The jovial tone disappeared, and in mere seconds, Jonah, who had been mocking the warnings, met his end, consumed by the fiery eruption. Meanwhile, Commander Hong felt immense relief and pride as he saw that he and his comrades had successfully evacuated all the people to a safe zone. Finally, everyone is out before the eruption. "I haven't failed my mission," he thought to himself. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble violently. A soldier ran towards Commander Hong, shouting, "Sir, be careful." Commander Hong immediately took charge, yelling to his team, "Prepare for earthquake shocks. Keep a safe distance and don't panic." In unison, the soldiers responded, "Rest assured, sir. We will ensure the mission is accomplished. If the earthquake grows stronger, we'll slow down and watch for road collapses." Commander Hong glanced at the sky with a sense of relief, thinking, "You are all the heroes who stayed till the end. We must return safely together with the news of victory." As the last batch of evacuees prepared to leave, the tremors intensified. Xin, monitoring everything from above, noticed the earthquakes were growing stronger. He turned to Ding Xiang and asked, "What's the probability they'll all escape successfully?" Ding Xiang, analyzing the data, responded, "According to my calculations, the probability of everyone surviving before the eruption is 26%, especially the last group of evacuees. They will face the erupting lava head-on." Xin smiled and, with a glint in his eyes, said, "How about making a bet? Maybe a miracle will happen." Surprised, Ding Xiang replied, "A miracle is just a random, small chance event. What effect does it have on the general population? These 80,000 people as a whole can't escape." Suddenly, a car was seen speeding towards the convoy of survivor vehicles at a dangerously high speed. Ding Xiang, alarmed, reported, "Abnormal tire pressure detected. Flat tire." Xin, still calm, remarked, "Even if they maintain a safe distance." Ding Xiang began calculating vehicle trajectories, agreeing with Xin's assessment. If the driver can't control the car and enters the emergency lane, in a convoy with an average speed of 130 miles per hour, there's a 64% chance of a crash. The soldier driving the out-of-control car realized he was heading straight for the convoy. In a split second, Without hesitating or thinking of his own life, he swerved the vehicle away from the convoy and jumped into a nearby ditch, avoiding a catastrophic collision. Ding Xiang was stunned. He actually sacrificed himself? Did he do it to protect the convoy? If you calculate it that way. Shin smiled and mused. I can't understand this logic. But if there are more people like him, what are the chances of total evacuation? Understanding Shin's point, Ding Xiang recalculated. After running the numbers, he reported, their chances of success have improved to 86%. Meanwhile, the soldier who had driven the out-of-control vehicle and sacrificed his safety was still alive, lying in the ditch but severely injured. Shin, observing this, smiled again, thinking, miracles are no longer mere random events. Ding Xiang made an announcement. 5 minutes before the volcano erupts, all personnel have successfully evacuated the city. Commander Hong and his team checked their watches as the countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As the countdown hit 0, the long dormant volcano in Yuchang City erupted with violent force. Shin, standing above the chaos, smiled darkly and said, "Welcome to the apocalypse." At the scheduled time, Yuanchang volcano erupted with an intensity over level 7, making it the second strongest volcanic eruption ever recorded in the country. The eruption triggered a massive 6.8 magnitude earthquake, with a focal depth of 10 kilometers and a range exceeding 120 kilometers. Inside the evacuation convoy, Commander Hong urged the drivers, "Go faster, as fast as you can." But the drivers responded in panic. "Sir, this is the fastest we can go. The volcanic eruption is causing rocks to fall, making it more difficult to escape." From his bus, Commander Hong addressed everyone over the radio. "Do not panic. Keep accelerating while maintaining formation. Soldiers, gather the civilians in the center of the bus, away from the windows." Despite his brave face, Commander Hong's mind raced with worry, wondering how many of us will make it out alive. Suddenly, large rocks began falling towards Commander Hong's bus. The soldier driving the vehicle shouted in fear, "Commander, we're in big trouble!" Meanwhile, the leading convoy had managed to escape. The soldier leading them radioed Commander Hong. "Why aren't you following us? You need to speed up. The farther you fall behind." Commander Hong interrupted. "Yongchang, you all go first. It might be too late for us. The road ahead is broken." Yongchang, shocked, replied, "How could this happen? We were so close to success." Desperate, he added, "I'll bring some soldiers back for you right away." But Commander Hong, with authority, yelled, "Yongchang, you dare! Can't you tell the difference between what's important and what's urgent? Keep moving, that's an order." Frustrated and furious, Yongchang thought to himself, the hero who volunteered to stay until the end has to face this fate. It's not fair. Meanwhile, Commander Hong's bus and 2 others were stuck due to the broken road. He and the soldiers disembarked, staring at the impassable terrain in front of them. Commander Hong sighed in resignation, realizing, we're not going to make it. One of the soldiers came up to him and suggested, "If we can't ride, we'll run. If anyone can't run, we'll carry them on our backs." Commander Hong, surprised by the soldier's resolve, asked, "How long have you been a soldier? Are you married?" The young soldier nervously replied, 1.5 years in the army, and yes, I have a wife. Commander Hong gave him a gentle smile and said, "Go make a phone call." The soldier, moved by the commander's words, felt tears well up in his eyes. Just as he was about to respond, he suddenly pointed toward the sky, stunned. "Commander, what is that?" Commander Hong turned in the direction the soldier was pointing and was shocked to see a massive spaceship floating in the air. He froze, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. What is this? As he looked closer, he realized who was behind the miraculous arrival. It was Shin, who had brought the spaceship to evacuate the remaining people to safety.